You doing? You know what time it is. It is Wednesday. What does Wednesday mean? Hit the horn. It means that it is tipping points and puzzle pieces. It is 1 p.m. in Kitsap County, everyone. So glad that you can join us again for another hour of humanity. And in order for there to be humanity, you probably need more than one human. So let me go ahead and bring up another awesome human in Mark Boatwright France.
Hey,
How are you doing there, sir?
I'm doing okay. It's been a couple weeks, and I don't see the movement toward humanity to take any less of my time.
Hey, it's a lot of scary things going on in the world right now.
Yes, there
Correct?
are. Yeah,
Boy,
what is it? Bo says frequently the foreign policy is an international poker game where everyone's cheating.
everyone's cheating.
Yeah, that's what he calls it. Occasionally someone will slide somebody another card. Occasionally this will happen and that'll happen. And if you think of foreign policy that way, it makes a whole lot more sense than if you think of it like people actually trying to get along.
Wow, everyone's cheating.
It's about power, it's about money. If you look at it that way, suddenly you understand how it all is what it is.
Well, the thing is, you never have enough of either, and so you remain unhappy.
Well, yeah, if that's what you're seeking.
Well, in this scenario, that is what they're seeking, and
Yeah,
they'll never have enough
absolutely.
of either.
No, well, each of the players is trying to get the best hand they can get and trying to make the partnerships, but everybody else is interested in their own stuff, not your stuff. So if somebody slides you a card, it's in their best interest, not yours.
Right.
So it's just what it is. And today's topic is really interesting. First of all, I spent the last weekend, Saturday, at the South Sound Sustainability Festival.
Oh, how was that?
Well, very different than the previous 3 years I've been at it. The first time I went it was just before COVID, and it was in the convention center itself proper and inside and everything else. And we had a big crowd and lots of people doing a lot of things. The the next time I went, it was after COVID. We were in the trail park at UW, right next to Tolleson Plaza. And the next 3 years, it was freezing,
Mm.
raining, and everything you can imagine that is just really uncomfortable when you're sitting outside for 5 hours. Um, we did a lot more prep. We were not as far along as we are now, so we didn't have as much to say. But there weren't very many people coming through. But there were a lot of booths, and then the next year there were less booths. And then there were more booths, but still there weren't very many people. And the people coming through really didn't give a damn about sustainability. They just happened to be walking through there to get somewhere else.
Gotcha. Okay.
And so this year it was sunny, if a little cold. There were a lot more people there, a lot more engaged people there, people who we had a lot of meaningful conversations with. There
Mhm.
were some new folks in the booths, and some really good conversations were had. I will tell you that our steps toward the Power for All project have just taken a couple exponential jumps.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yes. With conversations that I had with people that are solar installers outside of our county and who have a different approach to things. Also, there's a group, let me get their name right because otherwise I will totally screw it up. Um, Washington Solar Energy Industries Association, which sounds like your standard solar energy thing, but they just pushed through a solar consumers bill of rights
Really?
in the state of Washington, which helps protect people from shoddy workmanship,
Hmm.
from misinformation, from all of the things that drag solar down as everyone's trying to make their dollar in the solar market. So some big things happen there. Also, there's a group of people that are affiliated with the University of Washington that are training people on how to install Wi-Fi externally and make and build community networks, which could step into building um, something along the lines of a network or an information microgrid in communities.
Can you elaborate on that one? How do you install Wi-Fi externally? What does that mean?
Well, okay, so what we've been talking about in our look for Communication for All project, which has been way on the back burner,
Mm-hmm.
is that we think that trying to run cable to the okay, first of all, the cable providers have the market sewn up because it's based on cable. Okay, that little black cable that comes into your house and plugs into your wall and connects, and that's what all internet is. People are used to, unless now we've got the Starlink network. But there's no real fiber running to your house. The fiber is running into the streets. And if you have Comcast having put a hub near your house, they run the cable from the hub to your house. And they've had a monopoly because of that. Astound, Comcast, everything else. But all of the fiber is owned by Kitsap Public Utility District in the entire peninsula. So Comcast and Astound, I guess now, have to lease the bandwidth from them.
Okay.
At least that's my understanding. I'm not an expert on this, so please check me on that. But the problem is that they're stuck having to charge people $10,000 or $20,000 to run that last mile to their house.
All right.
And people, I mean, not many people I know are going to pony up $10,000 to $20,000 to have fiber laid to your house when cable is available from Comcast or Astound. Right?
Right.
So that keeps us from getting high-speed internet and any real competition going on because there's a monopoly of the infrastructure to get to your house. So let's change the model a little bit. We have been able to do Wi-Fi attached to poles doing line of sight for almost 15 years that I know of.
Okay.
So basically, what if we had Wi-Fi boxes on poles everywhere, and it was line of sight and hooked into the fiber, which goes into the streets, right?
Mm-hmm.
Then anywhere you are in the county, you put in your password and you're up on the internet.
Interesting. So what does that look like from a cost standpoint and from a security standpoint? I guess those are my first two questions.
Okay, well, cost standpoint, it's a fraction of the cost to put the boxes on the poles than it is to dig holes in the yards.
Facts.
Okay, so that makes it a lot more accessible to everybody. Second, it would alleviate the cost for internet cafes and all the people that supply free internet and are paying Comcast or Astound to have that bandwidth, because people will be able to connect to whoever's providing the bandwidth through the Wi-Fi. And if that's the case, then it's a lot cheaper for everybody to do that, and you're not paying back infrastructure, and you're not paying for, I'm just going to say it, corporate greed wanting to charge you X or Y for stuff that they've had in the ground for decades. You're not paying back anything. You're just making them richer.
Okay.
So if this were the case in Kitsap County and we had people who were able to set up those networks because they've been trained, suddenly we have the ability to connect to anywhere from anywhere.
All right. So I like that in regards to cost. Now talk to me about the security.
Okay, so security is a two-part process. I mean, we have the ability to hack bandwidth and get information. So people are going to have to be a little more careful about what they do, but that's the same story as here. I have a Wi-Fi network here. If somebody's outside and they know how to hack it, or they connect the bandwidth, that's a problem. But I also have a firewall that comes inherent with the product, and it's 128-bit, secure piece. It makes it very hard to hack. But if you use your birthday or you use password or you do any of those things.
Hold on, I need to make a note to change my password from password. I hope no one's listening right now. I'm gonna change it from password.
So, people have to be a little bit more, but we also have to educate them when we're installing the networks.
All right, so I like that. You were saying that was the Washington Solar Energy Industries Association?
Yeah, SEIA,
All right, I just wanted to
WASEIA.
pull that up for people. I'll put the link in the chat if you wanted to check that out
Yeah,
so they can see it. There
and
we go.
they're doing some really interesting things, but they also the people that become a member of WASEIA, you basically have to agree to a code of behavior,
Okay.
and that's incredibly important because the way it's been going now, it's like the Wild West.
Yeah, for sure. Well, I'm glad that that was really informative. Oh, I see all these solar panels on here. New solar ambassador membership.
Yeah, and we can talk about that later. I'm kind of considering that for us, but Matthew and I need to have a discussion about it in
Mm,
depth, and we have to make a phone call down there to find out what full membership costs. Because the people who are there, if you can go to their membership section, I think it's about us
yeah.
on there. Okay, if you go to the not the ambassador, but if you go to the top thing under about Wasia over one
Okay.
and go down to membership. Okay, and then scan down the page. They have nonprofit members that are kind of supporting members,
Okay.
and just keep going down. And it shows the current membership of people in the state. And I
What a
find it interesting who's not there. But okay, so nonprofit affiliates.
mm-hmm.
So there's a nonprofit up a little bit. Those pictures, yeah, those are the nonprofit affiliates. So I know a lot of these people,
Mm-hmm.
and none of them. Okay, Shoreline Community College. Let's talk about them for a moment. They are the trade college in Western Washington.
Gotcha.
They are connected with more of the unions and the apprenticeship programs than anybody else around. They're very engaged.
Okay.
They're really. I looked through the BEF one, and I can't tell what the heck they do. Clean Tech Alliance is Boeing, and Boeing with different names, basically influencing things. Environment Washington is really kind of an environmental org. I haven't really gone in depth to all of these, but I kind of looked through them. I know who Solar Washington are, and that's same old, same old. They're not
Mm-hmm.
really about change. They're really about the net metering and selling, you know, solar to people who can afford it. So I'm kind of reading through these and figuring things out. But I'd love to see Resilient Ecosystems up there as an influencer to create the what Matthew offhandedly called phase two, which is moving to solar on everybody's roofs, creating local power generation, and Starlink versus. So you're talking about the satellite, and Bailey put up. So let's talk about that for just a second. I've been reading more and more about Starlink, and I will tell you that I have a native bias to it, that it's an Elon Musk product, because watching how he does business makes me nervous about any business he's involved in.
Mm-hmm.
Um, he seems to be a bit of a loose cannon. Um, and there are some inherent issues with it. I've talked to people who tried Starlink, and it did not actually go as well as they were promised it would go. They had connectivity issues. They had a lot of problems with it. Now, I'm not saying that's universal. I'm saying that's the people I've talked to about it.
I think he
So,
was deploying that in Ukraine for the war, right?
yeah, he
And
was.
some success there.
And they just put up 20 more satellites last week, as I
Really?
saw the rocket launch for that.
Wow.
Um, so they're pelting the ionosphere with them, or whatever the dark is out there past the air, and they're slow. I mean, they're way faster than satellite was 10 years ago,
Mm-hmm.
but they're fairly slow. Um, you have to, there might be connectivity issues. It's a fairly new technology, and I'm just concerned about the company itself. And if people don't like it, or if Elon Musk does something Elon Muskish, that suddenly the company isn't going to be as viable as it once was.
Gotcha.
So, That's just my personal opinion, but the people I've talked to have had issues with Starlink. Though I talked to a couple who just moved into the area and are putting a bid on a house up in Navy City, and they opted to go with Starlink, and I'm waiting to hear back from them what their experience is. Oh, the other thing the people I've talked to said is that when you have an issue, there's no customer service to talk to at Starlink.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Trying to search and see if I can find out what it costs monthly. Starlink standard service now costs $120 a month for 24 to 220 megabytes per second. Let me see.
And I get twice that for 70.
Now, this is just a Google search here, so
Yeah.
just understand this is a Google search, so this may not be accurate.
Yeah.
Priority for 40 gigs for 140 per month. Priority 1 terabyte for 250 a month. 2 terabytes for 500 a month. Good Lord, yeah, that that's expensive. That's really good.
And I would actually ask if they can actually provide those speeds, because
Oh,
nothing I've read has said so.
So I'm at their actual website now.
Okay.
And yeah, well, one thing I will say, I do respect the fact that their prices are right up front and I don't have to dig for them or call.
Absolutely.
That's a big thumbs up for me. I really appreciate that.
Yeah. And as I say, from everything I've read on the transfer technology, I'm not entirely certain they can promise those speeds through direct link, at least not the last articles I've read, but it's been a couple of years. So they may have improved them.
So Bailey has another question for you.
What do you mean promoting here? You're talking about what I'm talking about on the Wi-Fi?
I believe so.
Okay, because I'm not actually promoting it. I'm suggesting that that's a technology we need to go to. And to be very clear on this, our organization is a nonprofit. We do not promote specific products. We look at all of the products and are trying to find the best way to go for at least ourselves. And we ask a lot of questions about technologies. But Wi-Fi has been around for a while. Like the line of sight Wi-Fi has been around for a while, but it's not being adopted because corporations are not interested in investing in it when they already have a technology that's making them bank.
And Bailey, if you're just tuning in, two of the questions I had when Mark brought up the Wi-Fi option was cost and security. And so we talked about those two things. I will say that I was part of a panel for Comcast as they had they had several panels actually here in Kitsap County. And they wanted to hear how their service was and what can change. And I did ask the question about monopoly and how these different companies have different neighborhoods. And the answer that I was given is anyone can come and compete. DirecTV could come in here and compete. Let's say they had coax cable or fiber optic. Anyone could. They would just have to dig their own lines, and that's cost prohibitive. And so they're able to keep their market share wherever they put their stakes down because it costs too much. So where it seems like and what is it in Port Orchard? I can't remember what the company is.
Astound. It used to be Wave. It's now Astound.
Wave, right? So everyone has their little staked out spots, and another company could come in.
And then there's CenturyLink, with which they have their little piece of it too.
Right. And so it's just cost prohibitive for them to come in and dig up the ground.
Wi-Fi would blow that wide open. So that's the thing that I would love to see with the Wi-Fi is it would just open up the market a lot.
And it is one of the equity issues of our time, right? Where, we need healthcare and housing. We talk about Maslow's, but now having access to the internet and Wi-Fi is one of those things today, right?
Yeah.
Accessing your doctor, accessing, applying for jobs. All of these things are
working
done
from home
through Wi-Fi, right?
Yeah.
Or even on the run, you're on the bus, whatever the case may be.
Or doing a podcast. As we visit our home studios.
For you.
Hey, is there studies proving that this is a good affordable for the community? I have no idea. I did, at least not current ones. I was looking at this 8 or 9 years ago. And there was a Canadian company providing street lights that had Wi-Fi repeaters on them, and were installing it in neighborhoods where there weren't any power because the streetlights were amen. Streetlights were equipped with solar panels and small wind turbines to generate power to lithium-ion batteries that would then charge both the light, power both the light and the Wi-Fi. So yeah,
And Bailey, I'm with you. I hate Comcast also. I have it.
So I'm going to share.
Nightmare.
I'm going to share a story from when I was working with a high tech company, which I cannot name, unfortunately, in Silicon Valley. And Comcast came in to do a presentation to us about what their goals were. And this was in 1998, 99, maybe. And they came in and they did this presentation. And nowhere in the presentation they talk about services, service expansion, what they were offering in value for the customers. The only thing they really talked about is that their goal was to get $200 from each subscriber. So their entire pitch was the dollar point. That's it. And at that point, I kind of went, and they're the only people. And at this point, I was unable to get high-speed internet where I lived in San Jose, in the south sound of Silicon Valley. I could only get, for those of you who even remember it, ISDN or dial-up. So I couldn't really work from home. So $200 a month from the subscribers in 1998, 99 seems like the wrong focus for a company providing a service. It should be focused on service, which brings us right to the topic of today's subject, or today's conversation, as we kind of got worked right around, because it says, what about the people?
What about the people?
What about the people is today's subject. And it's about, what do we do with people when we are looking for profit at the cost of all of the people who are customers? Now, going back to review the idea of capitalism in its earliest phases, it was about providing a means to trade service or product for money, as opposed to service and product for service and product, which is barter, which is what trade originally was. So now we're at the point where service and product are so minimally looked at in the overall scale of things that we focus on the profit and the money we can make from it. And we focus on externalizing costs, externalizing costs and minimizing the recognition or acknowledgement that we are using resources and not reusing them at an accelerated rate, to the point where we are using resources like we have 2 planets. And we have, or actually the last reading was 1.8 planets. And by 2050, they say we'll be using resources like 3 planets. At the same time all of this is going on, we started outsourcing jobs in 1980s, I would guess. And then we are now automating jobs, and we are reducing the salaries we're paying. We have reduced all of the benefits we're offering, until people don't have anything to live on. And yet we are raising, the rents are being raised, the cost of living is being raised, and they're just now starting to talk about inflation, which has actually been going on for over a decade that I know of, where people have been able to live less quality lives, and some of them are homeless. Actually, many of them are homeless. The reports are saying that we have, 46% of the people in this country are one paycheck away from being homeless. And when you look at that, you wonder, what about the people? What are we looking at people? Where are the human beings in this equation?
Is that rhetorical?
Well, maybe. I'm sure Bailey's got some thoughts about that, and I'm sure you do too.
So here are my thoughts. We continue to be frogs or the proverbial crabs in a pot slowly coming to boil, and we have not reached the tipping point where we're ready to say no more, right?
Hmm.
So
And
when
what
we
does that
get,
tipping point look like? That's the part that scares the heck out of me.
well, I think it's going to be violence. Um, I think people are going to be fed up with watching uh, our politicians send aid all across the world and ignore the people right there that are supposed to be their constituents. And sadly, it's our own fault because we keep voting these folks in and we don't demand something different. So it really does start with us, um, from local all the way up. And because we're in such survival mode and they know it, we say we don't have time to make it to a city council meeting or put someone who has some radical ideas in place to run and to change things. And then also understanding that one person isn't going to change it, right? It could be a start, but in Bremerton, there's 7 districts. So if you were to elect a radical in District 4, let's say, right, you would need to elect 4 more radicals at least to have the majority that are all thinking in the same way to say, hey, we are going to focus on the actual people and to ensure that we have our basic needs met at the smallest regard, right? And then push up. And the people that we advocate for at the state level have that same idea. But there's so many different things that need to change, and unfortunately, my fear is, and you're starting to see it, right? If you've been watching the news, I haven't been podcasting because you can see I'm pretty sick. Can't get too far without going into a coughing fit. But there is so much civil unrest. There is so much violence, and in all types of violence, right? Mothers against their children, fathers against their children, brother against brother. You're seeing all of these things going on right now. Unfortunately, we're so distracted and fighting each other that there doesn't seem to be this bandwidth for change, and so folks are going to get fed up, and there's going to be a lot of loss, right? And many of those losses are going to first come in the form of people just checking out, right? Either through
And that's already
addiction,
happening.
addiction, suicide, whatever the case may be. And then you're going to have other folks that are like, hey, you know what? Society doesn't care about me. So, you know what? I don't care about you. Um, and eventually it's going to affect enough people where you'll have folks in the street. And is it going to change anything? I don't know. But right now, both
Hasn't in
sides
the past.
putting together another package to send, right? And so, regardless of what you think, what should be happening or what side you fall uh, on these geopolitical issues, from a humanity standpoint, you can say, hey, gonna stay out of it, or if you feel like you have to step in because you should, you still have to kind of fix the potholes in your own street before you go out and fix someone else's street.
Well, I can agree with most of that, but a couple of points there is we've done revolution before. Hey, Shafina, sorry, been a long day. I agree, but revolution has never worked. In the 15,000 years that I've gone back and looked at, revolution has just reset the top. And I'm arguing with this, with climate change, with food insecurity, with everything else. I don't think we have time to reset the top. I think we have to come together and evolve out of it instead of revolve out of it. So
Oh, and I'm
what
not
is
advocating for um, violence. I want to be clear
yeah.
on that, especially here on these airways. What I'm saying is that is what's going to happen, and that's already happening. And when you see that unrest, first it is turned internally before it's externally pushed out, right?
Yeah.
Uh, as people are in survival mode and they fall further and further down.
And a lot of that's going on as we're seeing in Oakland and San Francisco right now, where large fast food chains are moving out of the area because of the violence in the parking lots. where they're carjacking and beating people and stealing from people and breaking in. It's so bad. I mean, when was the last time you heard of a fast food chain leaving because the violence in their area when they're trying to serve food is so high?
Right,
I mean,
right. Well,
that concerns me a lot.
let me read Bailey's
Yeah,
comment there. It says
and let me
Wi-Fi.
want to clarify on this one that when he's talking about Tesla, he's talking about Nikola Tesla, not Tesla the company.
Wi-Fi should be free globally. There was a proven study that Tesla figured out a way to access energy off of our Earth to give freely for the people. Now they've monopolized it for profit and literally killed people over it, and they've made all his work disappear. Um, again, I am. It probably sounds very radical, but I believe that we can have we already have a quasi capitalistic system with socialism built in, with Social Security and um, you know the money that is given. Our infrastructure would be idea of socialism, but we do socialism when it comes to big business, right? Elon Musk has benefited from socialism, right? He's
Mhm.
been given billions of dollars from governments in order to do the things that he's doing. Again, Maslow's hierarchy of need. Have a capitalistic system, fine, but it could be a hybrid. Basic needs should not fall into that mode. There's several other things that folks can make money off of.
Right. And in the case that we're looking at, Bailey, for power and possibly for the internet, is that once the infrastructure is there, it's the utilities' job to support the infrastructure, but the actual use of the waves should be ours. So what Germany is starting to model to, is that the utilities are converting to true utility use, which is saying you pay them for the infrastructure and they put the solar panels on your roof, they connect all of the software up, they create the microgrid, and you do a monthly bill to them to support the infrastructure and keep their people employed, which seems more equitable than buying power that can be easily manipulated and the price goes up and down and up and down and up and down. Let's talk about fuel prices going up again. Um, I think that a more equitable way, if it's capitalism and these people need paychecks, which they do, and benefits, which they do, then that has to come from somewhere. But I like the idea that I'm paying them for infrastructure as opposed to paying them for power that they're selling me from somewhere else. So just the thought about that. As you know, the resilient ecosystem model, the resiliency movement model, is to bring people together. And again, it's a generational model. It's not going to work overnight. Bring people together, get them conversing about priorities and setting priorities and getting together with other groups from other areas and talking through those priorities and having a conversation loop to keep everybody in the loop about as priorities change, and then using the power of grassroots networks to change the things that need to be changed. Now, that in a way is a revolution, but it's a revolution of the people, by the people, and for the people, which is, again, and I did want to pass on that we were asked to provide something for the scavenger hunts and for the children's passports at the event, the South Sound Sustainability Festival. We gave them 5 copies of the Constitution and Bill of Rights and 1 leather-bound copy for the grand prize thing from us. Because the first, several people can't answer the question, what are the first 3 words of the Constitution? And that's we the people. So we have a tool in the Constitution and in ourselves to create change. What we don't have so far is the willingness to come together and talk through difficult subjects and come up with a list of priorities of things that need to change so that we all do better. I kind of expected Marwan to be jumping on me about now.
Yeah, you're. I'm fighting injured today, sir.
Yeah. Okay. So the point is that we have to find a way to realize our differences are not the same, are not even remotely close to the same number of things that we have in common. But we'll never know that unless we start connecting with each other. So Saturday, on East Street, out right off of National. We'll be doing a work party to start planting the food forest that one of our board members has been setting up since last year, and start growing food for his family, the neighborhood, and anybody, the food banks, and anybody else who comes at the end of harvest to get the food. This is the way that we are stepping forward to get people in neighborhoods to start talking when they don't know each other. It's a long, slow process, but we've been getting an enormous amount of traction with it, and we are going to continue to push forward over the next several months and see if we can get 20 neighborhoods to grow food for us this year. And that's 20 neighborhoods that are talking to each other, and 20 neighborhoods that can start having the conversation of, what do you mean we want to bring 500,000 people onto Kitsap Peninsula in the next 10 years? Do we even know we have the water for that? So, dollars are pushing one way. We have to push common sense the other.
That is true.
And we, the people, are the only ones that can do that. So, while I agree with Marwan that we need to elect some people to city councils, to county commissioner seats, that can focus on change and change isn't quite the word I'm looking for, but focus on things that are more representative of the needs of the people in the county. And needs of the people in the county are also the homeless people in the county. We cannot discount them and treat them like they are not human. They are human, they are people, and they have problems and they have issues. And yes, the county agencies are strapped, but we need to come together, because one of the other things we can do together is find solutions that aren't bureaucratic solutions, that are not political solutions, but are human solutions. And we can do that by growing food and providing food to people that's grown locally in dozens of gardens across the county. We can do that by finding ways to create. I don't have the word for it, but in Europe they have bathrooms, open bathrooms that have showers or have wash stations, and ways that we can create more humanitarian ways of people being able to be hygienic and to get their needs met. Things that we are ignoring as convenience means that we push folks off to the side and keep them out of sight and out of mind. We need to actually start providing services so that hygiene can be addressed, that food can be addressed, and then start seriously working on ways that we can address shelter. And if we're together, and there's enough of us together, and we come to some solutions, we can push those solutions throughout the bureaucracy and the government. But we have to do that, because we, the people, are the only driving force they're going to listen to. And
what I would say to that, Mark, is, the answer truly is all of the above, right?
yeah,
I just believe that it needs to be simultaneous, and not, hey, let's come together first and then try to push on government, because
absolutely, you're absolutely correct. And what you and Bailey and many other people do is exactly that. You're pushing it while people are coming together to push harder. And what Resilient Ecosystems is focused on is bringing those people together and overcoming their perceived differences, so that they can talk about providing the human strength we need to make the permanent change. But in the meantime, there are some amazing, as Great Gift was yesterday, there are some amazing nonprofits in the area that are doing good work. And the work is trying to stem the flow of blood from the dying victim while we're trying to get permanent solutions in place.
And that is, I think, a big part of my frustration is these organizations have been around for a while, right?
Mm-hmm.
Some of us, G2 is 6. There are other folks that have been here, elders that have been operating for 15, 20, 30 years, trying to make a difference. And the one thing that's missing is that government piece that is changing things. and I think I talked about this a few weeks ago, right? You finally elect that person in, and you throw them into the meat grinder, and their one voice isn't enough to change, and then in a couple of years they look like everyone else, right?
Yep. I used to hang out with a Republican operative when I first was working with Clean Technology Trade Alliance, and one of the things he taught me is that it doesn't matter if you're Republican or Democrat. 6 weeks after you get to DC, you're like most everybody else because the machine is so adept at grinding you into looking like everybody else and
Mm.
doing and following the I want to say the political line, but I was going to say the company line, which is essentially the same these days. And I don't mean to be snarky here, but let's talk about money and politics and the fact that corporate money and politics actually drives politics these days. The people have nothing to do with it, and that's something that we have to change, and we can only do that together. And we need to start local and build. So,
So maybe uh, part of my puzzle piece needs to be putting together something tangible uh, that folks can start to say, okay, I can jump in on this, or maybe that's a good idea. But if we do it this way, this will be better. Uh, and we can start to go forward from there. I think sometimes, we're doing the work, we're providing the opportunity, we're creating the space. Um, but I always feel like there's sometimes it may come off as very esoteric and folks don't know where to jump in on the double dutch and get started, right?
well,
And
that,
there's so many different things that they're struggling with, uh, that they just need some things. What can I do to get started, where I feel like this is gonna do it? And I'll say, I just came back from I'm talking slower because I'm trying not to cough.
okay.
Uh, I came back from a conference a couple months ago, and they were working on a 50-year plan. And I think we need to do that as a community. What is our immediate goals, but also we need to look at our midterm and our long-term goals and say, hey, what is the roadmap for us to get there? And what are our benchmarks to say, hey, you know what, this isn't quite getting us there. We need to tweak this, or maybe we need to turn around and hop on another bus altogether. But right now, it just really does feel like we're in survival mode. Shout out to Rock the Block, who was awarded an award yesterday from the Kitsap Housing and Homeless Coalition. Let me give them a horn for all the different organizations coming together. And that really is a testament of just what we've been talking about this last hour, of individuals and organizations saying, hey, we're doing the work, but we can do a little bit more. Let's do it, right? And everyone doesn't have the bandwidth to do that uh, as it is. So, I really applaud all of them. I've been in meetings, with them where we're all in a FaceTime meeting, all in our bed at 9:30, 10 o'clock at night, trying to plan for the next day and trying to um, just give people energy to make it through the next day and go out and fight again. And as a transportation provider and a food provider, I look at the rest of the folks and say, I'm not, dressing wounds like Kelsey and Kimmy, and I'm not going, to the hospital like Dawn, and I don't have the conversation and the experience that Bailey has in the respect of the street, and the ability to go in and make things happen in the way that he's able to do, or Anton with the clothing closet, or Jocelyn, getting all the prayer warriors in. I just want to kind of give them all a shout out on that. But that's what that looks like. And that was not intentional in and of itself. It was just, there's an issue, we're all working, and the work we're doing is making a difference, but we need to do more. And it was like, okay, can we meet and try to figure out what to do? And this may be that idea of, and you do it all the time, right? You're saying, hey, come meet us at Cups and have this conversation, and let's talk and let's get to know each other. And it really does need to start there. but also now starting to have an outline of what it is. Maybe you're not the person that's going to go down and feed someone who's unhoused and have that conversation, but you're a wicked writer, right? And you can write policy and you can show up to city council meetings and make those changes and starting to say, hey, look, you know what? This is what the puzzle looks like. We need all of these pieces. Where do you see your piece fitting? Where can you plug
Mhm.
in and start to make these changes? What do we want our city to look like? What values do we hold as the most important? Folks being loved, housed, fed, having health, um, as a basic right of humanity. And how do we get there as a city, as a neighborhood, as a county,
County.
and then
Yeah.
go forward from that, right? What can we do as individuals? What can we do as a group? What can we do as an organization? And then what can we do politically? All right, I will stop now.
No, absolutely. I mean, you're saying all of the things that I've been saying all the way along. All of the people doing the work fit together. It saddens me frequently that a lot of the organizations doing the work see it as competitive as opposed to cooperative. And we need to get to a more cooperative place, which is why I'm so happy that Rock the Block got the award. I'm so happy that Rock the Block exists because it shows people who have very different approaches working together in cooperation for the greater good. And that's where our mind has to be. And you don't see me, and I'll say this to Bailey, you don't see me out there as often as Marwan and the rest of them because my role is slightly different. It doesn't mean that I'm not doing the work. It means that I'm doing different work. And I wish I could do all of it, and there just isn't enough of me to go around to do that. But I will tell you that my daughter surprises me all of the time. I have heard her go out and feed homeless people more often than not. She just like makes burritos and goes out and hands it to people. And she's done this in Seattle. She's done that locally. And when she isn't working all the time, she is trying to feed people. So it's not necessarily just us; it's getting people to approach feeding the homeless and taking care of the homeless in one-on-one situations across the entire community.
I'd say it's even more than that. You
Probably
have
so.
in the example that I gave with Rock the Block, right? We're all doing
Mhm.
our things as organizations and individuals, which is significant to be sure. But when we came together, we were able to become even more special, forming like Voltron for those that know who Voltron is. And do even more, right? And with your daughter, it is definitely commendable. She's obviously reaching someone who's in need at that time. But imagine if she came alongside, Bailey or one of the organizations that fed, right? The many hands make light work
Yep.
to make it easier because we're always shorthanded in whatever it is that we do, right? And there's just energy and in the more people there, just to make things easier, where folks aren't, at their wits end. I can tell you at the end of the year, almost everyone on Rock the Block had some kind of major health issue at the end of the year. Once everything slowed down, it was like, all right, we 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 can take a break now, and then boom, it all kicked in with significant issues, right?
Yep.
And so you need more. You just need more. So
Yeah.
I think creating that plan and saying, hey, what is a we can look at a year. What do we want to get going? And not saying that we're planning a year and then we're going to start doing something. We need to, and we are doing things now, immediately, in real time. But we also want to. How do we scale that up, right? And then how do we mark that we're actually making the change and that this city is going in the
And
direction that we
and
want
how
to
do you reach more people who want to integrate?
go? Yeah, absolutely.
Mhm.
And all of that has a piece, right? If someone's out dressing a wound, they're not on the phone call or an email having a conversation with someone. So those
Exactly
pieces
so.
are needed.
Absolutely. All of the pieces are needed to bring it together and bring the resources to the table. So again, as you mentioned earlier, we are at Cups Cafe at 10 o'clock every Sunday morning. Come come on in, have a cup of coffee. If you can't afford to buy one for yourself, there's money at the counter to pay for your coffee. But come in and talk to us, whoever you are. Let's start talking about how we can work together to make the world a better place. And maybe we're the doorway to other groups. If you want to do more active work, there's certainly Bailey, and there's Marwan, and there's Don Michelle, there's Kimmy Sebens. There's all of these people that would love to help you, or have you help them do what they're doing every day to keep people alive. And
here's a big one, Mark. Here's a big one. Come down to Cups at 10 o'clock on Sundays, and at 12, head over to ML King, because that's when Jocelyn and the Prayer Walkers and Tom, who's representing G2, come and feed everyone down there. Shout out to Starbucks. They provide us with 3 big carafes of coffee every Sunday, and Tom is our G2 proxy for that downtown. And so you can go from having the conversation to rolling up your sleeves and doing the thing, right?
Absolutely. So yeah, come on down and talk to us. Bailey, I'd love to see you there. We are way past due to get to know each other better, so I'm hoping that can happen in the very near future. And again, we have a work party over on E Street, right off of National, on Saturday from 10 till 2. So feel free to come on down there. We've got a pretty big group of people joining us, and we're going to start putting plants in the ground for harvest later in the year. We've got several other gardens lining up, and the whole point is to provide food for people. Of the priority, because it's usually in people's yards, or the family gets the food first, the community, their neighborhood second, and then a large chunk of the harvest goes to food banks. And we're planting for large harvests, and we're going to be doing multiple plantings throughout the year, so we're continually growing food as is needed. So it looks like Marwan is having a coughing fit, so join us at Cups. Conversations need to happen, and we need to listen to each other. We need to learn from each other. We need to overcome reticence about connecting with each other. We need to create community amongst ourselves so that we can mirror that community for the people around us. And I hate to say that people are dropping off the show because I'm talking, so I will quiet down now as Marwan brings up Facebook. What's going on with that, Marwan? Can you talk?
This is the Rock the Block Facebook.
Okay.
And so this is a great way. Just type in Rock the Block. It's got 539 members. You can reach out to any one of us there and see what's going on. Shouting out Anton yesterday for the great give. This was the awards yesterday. Also, busy day, right? We were talking about helping pets. I mean, just a little bit of everything is going on. Looking for people. All these things are here. So if you're looking to contribute and be a part in any way that might be, this is a great way to do it. If you have questions, concerns, there's Bailey, plate sale, Island Hut. I can't see the address. Just type in Island Hut. Can't see the address on there. But if you type in Island Hut, you'll see that. Delicious food. There's Jocelyn there. But yeah, we're all on here, and there's different ways to get involved.
Okay, so to slowly tie this up, as we're running out of time, when I said, this is about what do you do about the people, this crisis of people is going to continue to grow. There's no way that it can't continue to grow. All of the numbers, all of the information, all of the way that we approach our capitalism means that more and more people are going to be making less and less money, and they're going to be charged more and more money just to live. And there is no political will to change that. So What do we do about the people? That's really the conversation we have to have, because it's not the people who are in crisis right now, though they are the biggest priority, is the people who are in crisis right now, but it's the people about to be in crisis and don't even see it coming. And the only way we're going to get through this that I can see, and I am not a big one right way person, I think of lots of right ways, but the one way I can see us doing this is to come together and talk to each other. And it's the one thing we find the hardest to do.
Yeah, it can be difficult, right? We all have our interests. We have different priorities in that interest. But there are things that we do agree upon that need to be done.
And Marwan and I mirror this or show this every week, because I will tell you, Marwan and I do not agree on a lot of things, but we find a lot more that we have in common and do agree on than things we don't. Fair statement?
Yeah, well, and it's a choice to try to focus on those things rather than focusing on the other pieces, and not that it doesn't discount uh, my priority of those things that we do disagree upon, uh, but we do. There's so many different things to do,
If we focus on
so,
the disagreements, we don't get anything done.
and there's space for that. There's always
Yeah.
space for that, but there's stuff that needs to get done urgently, and so
Yes,
we have to prioritize that.
we
And
do.
it's going to be so much to build back if we don't attack it now. We're already behind the eight ball, so to
Yeah.
speak.
I use the term dominoes falling, and dominoes are falling. They've been falling for a while, and you're going to see them falling and doing more damage. And we have to start moving, because once the damage is done, it's too late. And damage, lots of damage is being done, but not as much as it's going to be.
All right, you got a final word?
Cooperation.
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 Oh man, hopefully I don't need the spell check for that. Cooperation. Word of the day. All right. So the challenge is to find someone that you don't normally cooperate with and try to cooperate with them.
Yes.
And cognizant of the fact that you were being cooperative. That's your challenge.
Yeah.
And
And the flip side of that coin is competition, which is something we go to first before we think about cooperation.
well, there's always space for competition, right?
Is there?
We can have a competition to see how cooperative we can be.
Oh, God. The term for that is oxymoron, like military intelligence.
All right. Well, I think it was a great episode. Sorry I missed last week. As you guys can see, I am sick again. It's horrible. Eventually, I won't be sick anymore, and you'll see me podcasting and whatnot. But there's no way I can get through 30 minutes of just talking and pontificating with what I have going on. So hopefully, I'll get well soon. But I do miss you all. I'm still here. I ain't going nowhere, Lord willing. But I hope you enjoyed today's show. Again, Sunday at Cups Cafe at 10 a.m., 12 p.m. down on ML King. If you want to help out the prayer walkers and Jocelyn and just be a part of that and get started. And challenge yourself. You can see us back here at 5:30 p.m. for City Council. This should be in-person meeting tonight. And we will go forward from there. There is no Kitsap Housing and Homeless Coalition meeting today because the award ceremony was yesterday. So we'll be back with that the third Wednesday of the month. So with that, for Mark Boatwright Frost, I am Marwan Cameron. This is Tipping Points and Puzzle Pieces. You're watching the Conduit Podcast Network. Until next time, everyone, take care of yourself, take care of each other.